Hey everyone, my name is Sam, and welcome back to the channel. Now today's video isn't really something that you'd probably see out of something like my channel, but this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a really long time, and well, curiosity killed the cat. So today, we're talking about Zelda, the Wand of Gamelon, and Link, the Faces of Evil. Oh yeah. So I know how well these games have been ragged on, so I'm going to try and do my best to be the end-all of both of these games. As the rise of CD technology was coming up, Nintendo had plans to develop a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo. After recent unfoldings, it could have been an entirely different console. Initially, Nintendo approached Sony about a CD peripheral, but due to licensing agreements, the deal fell through. After that, Sony would go on to make the Sony PlayStation, and I'm sure Nintendo still regrets that to this day. Next, Nintendo approached Philips about a CD add-on. However, the peripheral would never come into fruition. The only difference between Sony and Philips, though, was that Philips had the rights to use Nintendo characters, and boy did they take advantage of that opportunity. Philips would go on not only to make their own video game console, the CDI, but they would also make 4 games based off Nintendo characters: Hotel Mario, Zelda's Adventure, and the brother and sister games, Zelda, the Wand of Gamelon, and Link, the Faces of Evil. And that's all there really is for the history of the Philips CDI and the Zelda games. And well, I guess it's time to get started. So initially I thought the Wand of Gamelon was going to be pretty interesting just because you play as Zelda and not Link. But my hopes were dashed from the very first cutscene.
Zelda, Duke Onkled is under attack by the evil
oh
forces
God.
of Ganon.
Okay, I know that FMV is bad, but this is absolutely atrocious. My first thoughts were that the visuals really reminded me of King's Quest VII, and then I realized that the animations were both made by the same company. I mean, just look at this. I don't think I've ever seen anything so ugly in my entire life.
My boy.
So apparently the King and Link went off to Gamelon because Ganon, I'm assuming? Anyways, both the King and Link are captured and it's up to Zelda to save them both. And I mean, it's kinda cool to actually play as Zelda in a Zelda game. And I mean, my initial feelings of this game are actually pretty positive, surprisingly. Besides the cutscenes, of course.
Just pick what you want. I'll handle the rubies.
But seriously, the music is pretty 90s to say the least, and the backgrounds are all pretty interesting. Even the main overworld is pretty nice to look at, but that's really all the good things I have to say about it. The game lives up to its reputation more than I imagined it would. It's bad, for all the wrong reasons. So let's start digging into the shit pile that is this game. Throw everything you know about Zelda games out the window because this is gonna get ugly. So to travel from area to area, you can choose where to go from an overworld map, as I mentioned before. From there, the game is played out in a side-scrolling view much like Zelda 2. In fact, the game plays a lot like Zelda 2 gameplay-wise. Well, except for the fact that the controls are abysmal, but we'll get to that later. From here, you can fight enemies and interact with other characters. I swear to God, all of the characters in this game are possessed by something. There's just something that's really off about them, and I can't really put my finger on it.
Thanks! You saved me! That's the last time I'm going fishing!
This is illegal, you know.
My cakes will burn!
I mean, it may just be the horrible animation, but this game is way creepier than you might think. And also just straight up weird.
Oh my goodness, this is awful!
This game is absolutely frustrating. One of the leading problems is the hit detection, not only for Zelda, but for the enemies as well. The hitboxes are hardly defined, and it just makes hitting enemies a huge problem. And not to mention that when you get hit, you have no invulnerability period. You can die in a literal second if you're not careful. Or something that you think you can kill very easily will completely drain you of your life. You only get 3 lives per area, and for the most part, it's pretty manageable. But when things get tough, they get really tough. Not only is the hit detection awful, but so is the platforming, which there's a surprising amount of. So I know I said that all the backgrounds were really cool, but the fact is that they're also a huge part of the game's problems. The main problem is that you never really know where you can stand or where you can't. There's no foreground or background really, you just kinda have to jump around and guess where you're supposed to go. And trust me, it's not really laid out for you either. Jumping around also gives you the chance to hop up onto a higher ledge, which continues to waste your time and energy. Like seriously, one of the #1 killers for me was jumping somewhere and either not making the jump or not even recognizing that I was jumping into a pit of death. And this isn't a problem in just a few areas, it's a problem in practically all of them. And dear God, the jumps you have to make. And these freaking branches in the swamp level, fuck, so many deaths. And that's only the beginning of your problems. One of the biggest problems is item management, and unfortunately creates two of the other huge problems in the game. The first being grinding. Much like Zelda 2, you'll find yourself slaughtering enemies, but not for experience, for rupees. You really have to stock up on them because you are constantly buying items from the shop. The 3 items you can buy are lantern oil, rope, and bombs. You need the lantern oil for dark areas, which, as you can imagine, are extremely annoying. You really don't want to run out of it because let me tell you, it is not fun to try and make your way back to the door in complete and utter darkness. You need the rope to access certain areas of each stage, and just for overall mobility. And finally, you need the bombs to defeat difficult enemies and destroy these giant boulder things. But the bombs cost 20 rupees for 3 of them. And unfortunately, most of the enemies that you kill only drop 1 rupee. And if you're thinking, oh, I could just get away without them, you're dead wrong. In combination with the awful hit detection and the seemingly random pits of death, you don't have a chance of making it through the game without the items. And to add to the huge amount of grinding that you have to do, the game doesn't make switching between items any easier. You have to crouch and press the item button to open up the menu. But if you're near an exit, then you'll just go through the exit. It's way more frustrating than it should be. I mean, why couldn't they just use another frickin' button? It's not like the CDI controllers were lacking buttons or anything. Another huge problem is that the game hardly tells you where to go. Once you complete an area, another one opens up, but just because it opens up doesn't mean that you actually have to go there. In fact, you'll unlock a lot of places that you aren't really even supposed to go to, or at least not till later in the game. Hell, you can unlock one of the last areas of the game really early on, and at that point in the game, you don't have a hell of a chance to beat it. I mean, there's a really specific order to do the stages in because some of the bosses have to be beaten with certain items, and I take the term beaten very loosely. All you really have to do for the most part is throw a single item at them, and then they're dead. Even Ganon goes down just as easy, in both freaking games. The main problem isn't the bosses themselves, but the enemies. In some rooms, you'll be fighting a complete onslaught just to get to the end of an area, and that's not to mention the controls of the game. It doesn't matter what controller you use, it's all the same. Controllers are super clunky and extremely unresponsive, and this is what makes the game so damn hard. It's like you know exactly what you want to do, but because of how fast you move and how unresponsive everything is, you just end up dying way more than you need to. So once you actually get all the items that you need, you'll need to find the one of Gamelon, and then you can go take down Ganon. And like I was saying before, Ganon isn't that hard at all. It's the stage itself that makes you want to rage. I mean, just look at the way the enemies are chasing me at the entrance of the castle. It's ridiculous. But hey, once you finally make it to the top, Ganon goes down like a zeppelin, and the final cutscene plays. Everyone's fine, and the game ends with the downright creepiest laugh I've ever heard in my life. And that's the one of Gamelon. But, you know what? I still have a whole nother game to talk about. So every problem that I've addressed in The One of Gamelon is present here. Yes, this game is just as bad, if not worse, in every way, shape, and form. I mean, besides the fact that Link is more annoying than he's ever been.
It sure is boring around here.
Besides maybe the TV show.
Hey, excuse me, princess.
The game is just an abomination. And that makes sense considering that the games were both developed side by side. Hell, they're practically the same game except for a few differences. One of the main differences is that the game is just way harder than The One of Gamelon. The game throws double the amount of enemies at you. I mean, it's more manageable once you get the sword beam, but until then, you're just barely scraping by to kill enemies before they kill you. Not only that, but it seems like there's just a lot more random shit falling out of the sky trying to kill you. I mean, I can understand the volcano erupting, but what the hell is with this cliffside constantly trying to kill me with falling rocks? Like, who the fuck is up there? Seriously. One more difference is that there are snowballs and fireballs, and while that sounds like it wouldn't be a huge deal, it kind of is. As you can imagine, the snowballs and the fireballs can only kill certain enemies respectively. Once you kill an enemy with one of these, you essentially swap it out for the opposite ball. And I don't know if it was just me, but the backgrounds are even more confusing than the last game. It's like the developers were trying to make this game harder on purpose. I mean, yeah, the game gives you all sorts of rupees, but compared to the last game, you hardly buy anything. I mean, the only real grinding you have to do is get more snowballs and fireballs. And trust me, you'll need a lot of them. I really can't get over how creepy all the NPCs are in these games. It's like, I don't even know how to react to them.
With this ruby, I replace your soul. You will obey. Ow! Ow!
I think the strangest part about both of these games is how short they actually are. Once I totaled up my recording time for both games, it took me less than 8 hours to beat both of them, with all the frustration included. When I was playing them, I could barely play for an hour just because of how frustrating it was to play. It was like I was trapped in a time warp or something. Oh yeah, but I can't just forget about the best ending scene of all time.
I won!
What a slap in the face. I'd go through all of this trouble to save Zelda, defeat Ganon, go through the awful hell that is this game, and that's all I get? Dumbass Link proclaimed to the goddamn world that he won. God, this game can go die in a fucking landfill. So whatever you do, stay the hell away from these games. Believe everything that everyone has ever said about them. You will save time, you will save money, you will save the struggle, and just please, please stay away from them. Alright, well, I'll see you guys next time. Later.